All right, why don't we get this meeting started? Both Yvette, who is the chair, and Tom Harias, who's the vice chair, could not make it, so they've scraped the very, very, very bottom of the barrel and asked me to do it. So you get what you pay for. Why don't we start with introductions? If we could start right there, please. Thank you.
Austin Lee, City of Lafayette.
Jeremy Lukirko, City of Walnut Creek and Transpac Rep.
John Cunningham, Contra Costa County.
Chad Smalley, City of Richmond.
Andy Dillard, Town of Danville and SWAT.
Paul Reinders, City of Pittsburgh.
Steve Kersavan, City of Brentwood.
Barbara Hawkins, City of San Pablo.
Dave Vaughton, MTC.
Laramie Bowron with the County Connection.
Michael Tanner, BART.
Jerry Fay, Contra Costa County.
Eric Hughes, City of Pleasant Hill.
With that, let's go to public comment. Are there any members of the public who would like to address the committee on anything that is not listed on the agenda? Seeing none, we will go to the approval of summary of actions. Do I have a motion to approve?
So moved.
Second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Beautiful. Consent calendar. Going to be done in 35 seconds. Consent calendar. Any reason for anyone to pull anything, or can we have a motion to approve the consent calendar as shown? Second? All in favor? Aye. Opposed? Now, do we have a request? Yes, we would like to move item number 8 to next. Okay, then if anyone has a major heartburn over this, we would like to go to item 8, which is the initiation of the 2017 Regional Transportation Plan Call for Projects. I guess Martin's not here, and
Martin is on his way to Spain.
Fire.
Lucky dog. I'm here to talk about the initiation of the 2017 Regional Transportation Plan Call for Projects, which we expect to get a letter sometime in May. Dave can correct me on anything that I say tonight or this afternoon. It seems like the 2013 plan just got adopted, but in 2 years, MTC has to adopt an updated regional transportation plan. This plan, like the previous one, will go out to 2040 as its final year. So we do not expect to have much different in the way of available funding. In fact, it could even be lower. That's a possibility, given what the federal government's been doing. One of the things that for every regional transportation plan that MTC does is to ask the CMAs and the counties to come up with a list of projects that we would recommend being included in the regional transportation plan. And if you look at attachment, I think it's attachment B, that's basically the list of all the projects that were in the 2013 RTP, or otherwise known as Plan Bay Area. We've divided them into 10-year and 20-year lists of projects based on what the sponsors said that when they thought they would complete the projects. We also have a list of programs, which are sort of general funding amounts that would go to general purposes. What we're proposing to do is, once we get that letter with the estimate of funding from MTC, when we expect next month, that we would send out a letter to the Regional Transportation Planning Committee saying, we've been given this amount of money, so give us your priorities within your share of that. So roughly a quarter each for each of the 4 Regional Transportation Planning Committees. We hope you go through the list. If there are projects that have been completed, eliminate them. If there are projects that have different definitions and different project costs, we'd ask that the RTPCs update them. If you don't want the project, you've given up on it, you think it's a bad project now, get rid of those. And if you think there are other projects that you can fund within the funding limitations that are your area's priorities, we want to know about that. By the end of September, we need to have a final submittal by a recommendation by the authority to MTC for the projects that we want them to consider. Generally, they give us more money than we'll actually get, so that MTC will have a bigger list of projects to analyze. Obviously, since they may give us 1.5 times what we'll actually get, some of the projects won't get included in the 2017 RTP, and that happens every time. So this is a forewarning of the process and what we'll be asking you all to do when you're working with your tax at the RTPCs. Also, next, let's see, what's today? In about 2 weeks, MTC will have its first workshop on the 2017 RTP for Contra Costa. There'll be several of them over the course of the next 2 years. This one is on April 29th from 7 to 9 at the Walnut Creek Marriott. So if you're interested, there's an attachment about it in the packet today, but there was no actual date or location, but it is at the Marriott from 7 to 9 on Wednesday the 29th. So if you have any questions, I'll try to answer them. And maybe I'll ask Dave to step in.
I have a question being new to this county. How are the funds prioritized? Are they segregated by transit, multimodal? Are they prioritized by region? Projects that have been on the STIP for a while, do they kind of rise up to the top? How does that work?
Well, the STIP projects are, if they're fully funded, they're considered committed. They have to have a completed EIR. I don't know are you going to be changing that? There's a little bit of change in the definition of what committed is.
For all intents and purposes, it's pretty much the same. If a project is either fully funded with local dollars, or the project has an adopted EIR and full funding, the project is committed. But in general, most projects aren't committed until they've lined up all the dollars. They're kind of ready to go.
So it's a pretty restrictive definition of committed. For the other projects that are not in that committed category, MTC has a number of performance targets and measures that they use to evaluate projects, at least the larger projects. Some of the smaller projects often get lumped into sort of project categories. And I've forgotten your limits this time, but MTC will be reviewing the performance measures that they used the last time, making sure that they are, the ones that didn't work aren't used, and the ones that did will be continued to use, and there'll be tweaks to them and how they're measured and calculated. But the different projects throughout the region are reviewed, and the ones that score better on all these targets are the ones that are ultimately included. There'll be an opportunity, if your project isn't included, to make an argument why you think it should be for other reasons, even though it did not score well on the performance measures. That's the way it worked last time. I think that's basically how it's going to work this time.
And as far as the allocation of the different funding sources, that's something that staff identifies for the different projects and says this project would be suited well for this funding source. This one's state, or this one's federal, this one's...
I don't think we get into that level of detail. We're talking about a 25-year, roughly 23-year. Well, there'll be some of that, I think. Dave can...
So when you submit the projects to MTC, which I should just clarify, the process for all this, we do have project sponsors who submit to the CMA. The CMAs will be reviewing the projects, and then that process must be complete by the September 30 deadline. In that submission, there's a section for funding. For each project, you need to identify the committed funding that's already secured for the project. In terms of discretionary funding, there are several boxes for discretionary funding requests. but it's part of our responsibility to, once we identify which projects are going to make it into the RTP, to align those funds so that way all the funding sources match up and none of them are overburdened.
So MTC looks at the different funding sources and says, yes, this project has a good chance of competing for it, and we would rank it higher than another one.
Yes.
Okay, thank you.
Any other questions? Then I take it you would like from us basically an acceptance of this staff report?
Yes.
Okay. Do we have a motion to approve the staff report as it has been submitted?
So moved.
Shouldn't be this tough. Second?
Second.
All in favor? Opposed? Congratulations.
Thank you.
With that, we'll move to number 6, project monitoring. Stephanie?
Hello, good afternoon. For your information, the monthly monitoring reports are on pages 6-1 to 6-10. We monitor the STIP and OBAC projects monthly, as well as the inactive FHWA projects. So if you refer to the 14-15 table, we're happy to report that half of them have been obligated. And we also have started to monitor the 15-16 OBAC projects. And they're shown on page 6-6. There are 15 projects, totaling $18.1 million. Just another reminder that the request for authorization, or E76, is due on November 1st of this year. And we continue to ask that you provide us with updates monthly so we can keep the tables current and accurate. I'll take any questions if you have any.
Any questions? Seeing none, why don't we just move right on to number 7? Thank you.
Thank you. That item is about STIP 2016, and the process for that has begun, and we are to submit our project priorities to MTC in October. In order to meet the schedule, staff is recommending a call for projects to be issued on May 20th, following the authority approval in their May meeting. And as you know, STIP is updated every 2 years, adding 2 years to the prior programming commitment. The 2016 STIP will be adding programming of funds for 2020 and 2021. We anticipate the funding to be somewhere between $10 million to $20 million, depending on CDC's approval, and that will come out in August, their fund estimate. The tentative schedule is shown on attachment A. Project sponsors are to submit their project nominations with their RTPC approval by November 17th. A subcommittee will meet sometime in late July to evaluate the projects. Staff will then seek approval of the ranked project list from APC and Authority Board in September. Staff is seeking your recommendations on the screening and the scoring criteria for the 2016 STIP, and the criteria is shown on page 7-3. They are very similar to the ones we had in the 2014 cycle, with transit and roadway projects being evaluated separately. The only difference is we added number 12. Applications are limited to no more than 2 per jurisdictions. And also, just as a reminder, per 2013 Measure J Strategic Plan Policy number 9, East County is precluded from competing in the 2016 STIP because of the 2014-15 bond that the authority issues specifically or dedicated to the EBAR project. This cycle, the 2016 cycle, will be the last time that the East County is precluded or excluded from the competition. We're also asking TCC to form a subcommittee today to help us to screen and score the projects that we will be getting. We're asking for 2 volunteers from each RTPC and 2 from transit operators. And again, they will be meeting sometime late July to evaluate the projects. So to summarize, we're asking for recommendations on the scoring and the screening criteria, as well as for volunteers to serve on the subcommittee to evaluate the projects. I'll take any questions or try to take questions.
Any questions?
To clarify, the only change from this screening criteria to the last is the addition of item 12?
Correct.
Okay.
By projects of regional significance, number 9, does that mean they have to be on the CMP?
So Matt was going to answer. He has a map of,
The CMP network is a subset of the routes of regional significance. We can distribute a map of the routes or a list of the routes of regional significance if that'll be helpful.
That would be helpful for me. Thanks.
Any more questions? And we'll go to the more difficult part. Does anybody want to volunteer?
we'll probably have food.
I think you just do, whoever didn't show up gets in, I think.
I'm saying it probably takes longer than 4 hours. But
Bart will volunteer for the transit operator side.
cool, great, thanks.
All right, I'll do it too, for that county connection.
County connection, thank you. Yay.
We're East County, we're not doing anything. Forget you guys. If we don't get money, we can.
You're
can be
looking for
impartial, that's
two
right.
representatives from each RTPC, correct?
I'm sorry?
You're looking for two
Yeah, we're looking for
volunteers.
from each region.
Can we give you some volunteers' names from our next TAC meeting next Tuesday, after our next TAC meeting?
Sure, that would be fine, I think. That's for transplant, yeah, sorry, I blanked out. Yeah.
Sure, I'll volunteer for Transpac.
I'm going to pull SWAT and I'll get back to you.
Okay.
Or 2.
I'll go on a limb and say that all the RTPCs are going to get back to you after they've had a TAC meeting and get you 2 people. Does that
Okay,
sound about right?
Yeah, we can contact
Okay.
them individually. Okay, thanks.
Then other than that, all you need is a motion for us to approve the report.
Yeah, the criteria of the scoring, the screening criteria.
Do I have a motion?
So moved.
Second?
Second.
All in favor? Opposed? Done.
Yay.
We're adjourned. See you May 21st.